Okay, so jumping right in. So as I mentioned, the first thing that we're going to do is model the shank. So we are basically going to work on getting two of these ring bands side by side, but we're going to start by just making one of those ring bands. So I hope that everyone has chosen your ring size that you're going to do. Otherwise, you can follow the one that I'm doing. It's going to be a size 6, which I realize is sort of on the smaller side. So, feel free to just fudge it if you want as well. Okay, so the first step. So you watch me, and then I will do it again. So the first step is that we're going to grab our basic cylinder. So an orange cylinder from the basic shape menu, and we're going to drop it roughly in the center of the work plane. So to show you that again, cylinder. So this is where you can kind of follow along. So head to the basic shapes menu, grab the orange cylinder, and single click to highlight it. It's now attached to my cursor, and I'm going to drop it roughly in the center of my work plane. And I'm going to kind of pause so you can do that. So everyone's screen should look like mine right now. And I'm just going to get a little closer so that you can see what I'm doing. So we want this to be all in the same orientation so that my navigation later on makes sense to you. So we're going to go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees. So watch what I mean by rotating it. So I've single clicked to select my cylinder. I'm going to click this rotational arrow up here and type in 90 and then hit enter. So let me just show that again and you can follow along. So right now our cylinder is upright. We are going to single click to select it, single click the rotational arc up at the top here, and then hover and change that to 90. And all of your work planes should now match mine exactly. Okay, so this is where we're going to start to branch off from each other depending on your ring size. So at this point, our cylinder, and you can just watch this right now, our cylinder, when I hover over my hollow or white box, I can see some dimensions coming up. So 20, I can't show you, 20 by 20, 20 over here, 20 over here, and then of course the height, 20. So this is a very, very large ring size right now. It might actually be off the charts. We want to update our ring to be our own ring size. So I'm going to go with a size 6, and that is 16.5 millimeters. And that's where you need to look at the chart. And if you do know your ring size, note what that diameter measurement is. It should be in the teens, probably 16 millimeters or higher. That's the measurement you're looking for. So for a size 6, I'm going to change this measurement to 16.5 and also this height to 16.5. And I know it's a little confusing when I say height, but really this is the diameter that I'm concerned with. That's going to be the hole in my ring. That's going to be the size of my finger. So I will show you that again. We start with a cylinder that is 20 by 20. Everyone's cylinder will be 20 by 20. And we want to change that to your own ring size. Mine is 16.5 by 16.5. And then at this point, you are going to need to change the width of your ring. So if you can imagine, this is the sort of side view of my ring. I'm kind of holding up. So we just changed this dimension, the circle dimension. Now we're looking at the thickness, the side profile. So these rings that I wear, I believe are like right at 2 millimeters. They're pretty dainty, but the word itself is a little chunkier. And I have some different thicknesses in here. You can see some of these are thinner, some are thicker. I think I range anywhere from like 2.5 to 5 millimeter in height. What we're concerned with right now is the width of the ring band. So I am going to use a 2 millimeter width. And what I need you to do is so right now I have my 16.5 over here and I have my 16.5 here. I now need to change this dimension right here. So for me, I'm going to choose 2 millimeters. And now this should look something like a ring. I'm just going to kind of move this back over here. So let me just show you that again. So you're going to choose your ring band thickness or width, and you're going to change that last measurement that was 20 millimeters down to something closer to like 2, 3. If you want to go chunkier, you can go chunkier. Be aware though, the chunkier the ring, the wider the ring, the more you'll have to size up your ring. So if I'm a 16.5 in a skinny band, like you see on screen, in reality, if I go to like a 5 millimeter band, I'm more like a 7.5 or 8. And that just has to do with how much like the excess sort of skin on your finger that needs to kind of fit in all of that. So do keep that in mind. So that might help dictate what size ring, what width ring. The other thing is you want to note what that measurement was right there, because we are going to refer to it quite a bit later. So for me, 2 millimeters. If you want to just follow that, just so that you can kind of use my guidance, go ahead. Otherwise, I would just write that down somewhere or try and keep that in your mind if you did something other than 2 millimeters. Okay, so the last step with getting this set up is I want to show you this. So when I scroll in, and you can just watch this, when I scroll in, you're going to notice there's all these facets, all of these sort of like flat faces. This is essentially a mesh, and this is simulating a perfectly smooth circle, but it is never perfectly smooth. We want to make it smoother. So you'll notice now when I click on the shape menu up here that you see this menu box pop up. There's some attributes to call out here. It's telling me right now you have an orange solid object selected. And here's some different attributes that are different for each shape. We're only concerned right now with number of sides. So watch what happens when I increase the number of sides all the way up. Do you see how my circle got much smoother? So that's what we want to have this smoother circle, because if you do fabricate this, those faceted edges or those faces will show up in your final part. So let me just show that to you again. So this was my original. Single click. Increase the number of sides all the way up to 64. Okay. So at this point, I see a couple of people have jumped on. So really all we've done is, for those of you who may have missed it, we've added a cylinder. We have rotated the cylinder 90 degrees. We have resized the cylinder to our ring size. For me, I'm a size 6, so that's 16.5 millimeters by 16.5 millimeters. And determined what you would like your ring width to be. For me, and for this class, I'm doing 2 millimeters. You can do something wider. I don't recommend going any thinner than 1.5. Otherwise, you can really start to get your rings dinged up really easily. In fact, these you can see like this one is already pretty like bent out of shape. So I would say like 2 millimeters or higher is really like comfort zone. And the last step you were going to do was to single click select your cylinder and increase the number of sides. So I don't know if that was too fast to follow, but I'm going to kind of keep moving on at this point. Okay. So for everyone that is here and is patiently waiting, so we are now going to start to build. So right now, this is just a solid disc. It doesn't really do us any good. It's the size of a hole. It's not even the size of the ring. So let's start building off of this. So we're going to select this, and then I'm going to show you a new, if you've never taken Tinkercad, a new tool, that's duplicate. And that's a way to basically make a copy of this. So watch my screen when I hit that. You're going to see the object blink very subtly. And there was the blink. So you don't know anything happened, but now I have 2 of those objects. So I'm just going to undo that, and then you can follow along. So single select your cylinder, hit this. It looks like layers up here, or like pieces of paper stacked up. Hit that once, but watch your screen and you'll see it blink. And now just single click and drag just to verify that you have now 2 of those cylinders. So what we're going to do is we're just going to send one of these off to hide for now while we work on the other one. So just click one of them. It doesn't matter which one it is. Click one of them, and then in that shape menu again, you'll see this light bulb. So that means that you can hide this object. So just click that light bulb once, and now you're back to one cylinder. You do want to verify that this light bulb here is now lit up. That means that something is hidden, and if you click that, you could show it again. So let me just show that again to all of you. So we had 2 cylinders. I'm going to select one. I'm going to hide it. It disappears, and I can confirm that it's hidden by my light bulb up here, which is now black, and you can select it. So go ahead and do that if you have not already. Okay, so moving along. And again, thank you, Selena, for confirming the pacing is good. Anyone who is struggling, please, you can ask me to repeat a step or just, mention something that I'm going too fast at a certain point, and I will slow down or readdress or re-show that step. Okay, so we are now we're going to transform. Let me just double check. Yep. So now we're going to start to build the actual ring body. So if we looked at our measurements, we can tell that this is the size of the hole or the finger size. We need this to be the size of the actual ring, including like the wall thickness. So we're really building wall thickness now. So for me, I want to make my ring band 2 millimeters thick so that I kind of have a square cross section. Because remember, mine is 2 millimeters wide in this direction. I think in this direction now, I want to make my ring band also 2 millimeters thick. It doesn't have to be the same number. If you want like a really chunky ring band, you can go to 3 millimeters. Do keep in mind though that this is going to be sitting in between your fingers, and you only have so much space in between like the sort of webs of your fingers. So you don't want to go like really, really thick, because then it's going to feel like it's pressing your fingers apart, and that's like a special kind of torture. Trust me, I've made that mistake before. So what that means for our cylinder is that we now have to say, okay, I want a 2 millimeter thickness of my ring band on either side. So that means I have to add 2 millimeters and 2 millimeters, so 4 millimeters total. So whatever you decide your thickness is, double it, and that's how much bigger you're going to size your cylinder. So right now, I'm going to go from 16.5 to 20.5. I also have to do it on the other 16.5, 20.5. Okay, so now we're verifying that I've added 4 millimeters total to the diameter, which gives me 2 millimeters on one side of my band and 2 millimeters on the other, or 2 millimeters all around. Hope that makes sense for everyone. So 20.5 because I was 16.5, and 20.5 because I was 16.5. This number over here stays exactly the same. So you're only changing your ring size. You're adding, in my case, 4 millimeters. You might be adding more. If you decided you wanted a 2.5 thickness on either side, you would add 5 millimeters to that ring size measurement. Okay, so let me just show that again, and then you can also listen along and do the same thing. So clicking our cylinder, updating our ring size from, in my case, 16.5 becomes 20.5, and 16.5 becomes 20.5. And I'm not touching this measurement right here. That stays exactly the same. Okay, so I'll give you a second to do that. Okay, so now we are going to call upon our hidden cylinder. So up here, everyone's light bulb should be black. If your light bulb is not, and you're like, oh, I don't know what happened, I meant to duplicate, it didn't happen, it's fine. Just make a copy of this by duplicating it and then size it back down to your ring size. That's all that you need to do. It doesn't always get that easy. Once you get further along, if you make that mistake, it can be a pain, but you're not that far along yet. So just copy it and resize it. Resize one of them. So just go ahead, hit your hopefully selectable and black light bulb. And now you should see your original cylinder. So everyone's screen should look roughly like this. Maybe your other one is back here, but regardless of where they are, you should have your original cylinder, that is your ring size, right? And you should have your newly sized larger cylinder, that is your ring size plus your band thickness. So 20.5, 20.5. Both of these should have the same width. 2 millimeters here, 2 millimeters here. Okay, so again, that was, oops, sorry, you can't undo here. Sorry, just one second. So pretend this was already hidden. So you were here just now with your larger ring size, your larger cylinder size. You've just done show all, and you now have your original ring size and your larger. Okay, so this is where the modeling process starts to feel a bit more like magic. And I love this. I never get tired of this, even though I've been modeling for like 8 years. So we're going to click the ring size. It doesn't make sense that this is a solid anymore because this needs to be the whole, right? So when you single click an object, you get the shape menu that pops up. And right now, Tinkercad is telling us this is a solid shape. It's got the blue outline saying this is a solid shape. I want to change this to be a hole. So again, that was just me. Go ahead and do this. Single clicking the ring size, the smaller of the two cylinders, and then change it to be a hole. And now your smaller cylinder should be this sort of transparent, translucent striped object, and your larger cylinder should be a solid still. Doesn't matter if your color is different. Unless you changed it, it would be orange. But this is what you should be seeing on screen right now. One is clearly larger than the other. Okay, so go ahead and do that if you have not already. Okay. And we are going to now combine these and really start kind of moving through this process. So to combine two items, you need to group them. But you can tell right now that these are not really in alignment with each other. They're just sort of floating arbitrarily. To align these in a simple and perfect way, we're going to use a new tool. It's the Align tool. So I am going to click both of these. You can just watch for now. I'm going to select both my whole cylinder and my solid cylinder. And to do that, I single click one, I hold Shift, and I single click the next one. And now you can see that my bounding box is showing both of them. Both are outlined in blue, showing that they're selected, and my shapes menu says 2 objects are selected. You can also select by dragging a bounding box, and it will do the same thing. So select both of these. Go ahead and do that now. And then the Align tool is up on the other side, on the right top of the screen. It's this like kind of weird not pie chart, but like a bar chart, Align tool. So when we click Align, just watch for a second because this is a weird one if you've never used this before. So when you click Align, some things pop up. So these are alignment nodes. And you'll notice that one of them is gray and the rest of them are black. So this gray one is telling me that there is a point of alignment already happening between these two objects. And you don't need to think too hard about like what all this means because it can get a little bit like meta. It's a little weird. All you need to do is start hovering, and as you hover, the node turns red and it shows you a preview of what some of these points of alignment look like. So let me just kind of show you what we're going for, and it will make a lot more sense when we do that. So I know that I want my center points to be aligned, right? Because I want this, both cylinders, they have a center point. I want them to be overlapping each other so that they're that the small hole is perfectly centered inside the larger solid cylinder. So to do that, I'm going to say, okay, here's a center point node. I'm going to click that. It turns yellow, gray. Here is another center point node. I'm clicking that, gray. Here is a third center point node. clicking that. And now you can understand how these two objects interact with each other. So let me just go ahead and do that again. And you can now follow along and do this. And do please make a little post or a comment if you need me to show this like a third time. So select both objects, go up to the Align tool, click the Align tool so that you see these nodes, and select the 3 center points. One center point was here. So there's 3 center points. What you're going to see though is that if you've done this correctly, in the sort of width of this, you actually have 3 points of alignment. And that's because, remember, both of these ring bands or cylinders were the same depth or width. For me, they're both 2 millimeters. And so I actually have 3 points of alignment because they are the same, they're the same depth or the same measurement. So rotate your item around a little bit. It should really look the same on the front or back. I'm just going to show that one more time because alignment can be a little bit weird. So you're going to select both objects, click Align, and actually I'll make sure that they're not aligned. Okay. So select both objects, click Align in the upper right-hand corner, and then you want to hit 3 center point alignments. So 1 gray node here, 1 gray node here, and 1 gray node there, which then turns all 3 of those nodes gray. So yours should look exactly like this. You should have a gray node, and then 3 gray nodes. Okay, so no one has called out anything, so I think that you guys are all flying through this, so I'm going to keep moving on. So at this point, this is the magic. We are going to select these together. I always recommend dragging a bounding box to select when they're overlapping because it's really hard to isolate them when they're overlapping each other. So drag a bounding box to select 2, verify that both are selected up here, 2 shapes. And now we're going to use group. So you haven't used this yet, but you probably know where this is going. So when you group an object together, now both of these attributes have come to their full realization as traits, right? My whole cylinder is now an actual whole, a whole feature inside of this solid. Okay. I'll just show that one more time. So you were here. It looks very symmetrical front and back. You're going to drag a bounding box to select both together, verify that there are 2 shapes, and then click group. And now you should have a basic ring band. And if you were like, oh my God, I am not following along, or this is like taking forever, you know, find a stop here and you've got a cool ring band for yourself. But if you would like to keep going, we're going to now kind of build a little faster on this. Things get, you know, pretty cool from here. So, okay, moving right along. Okay. So we are now going to refer to the orientation cube so that we can do some nice aligning or nice adjusting of the ring cylinder, of the ring band. This is now a proper ring band or shank. So click the front orientation cube that was up here, and you saw, I'll just do that again. You see that when I hover over it, it turns blue. It means you're about to preview, you're previewing the front view navigation. I'm going to single click it, and it automatically snaps me to this front view. So this is kind of a weird thing that I want to point out, but it does come in really handy in cases like this. So do you see how when we're looking at this, you can just follow me for now. So when we're looking at this, you can tell that this looks very natural. This is how our eyes see in perspective. We are at a dead front view. However, you can still see some of the perspective of the other side or the inside walls of my ring sort of peeking out. This is really to mimic how we see objects. You know, we see objects 3-dimensionally. Our eyes are curved. We don't see things totally flat like sketches. However, it becomes a little hard to understand spacing when you're looking at it this way. So this is a great tool. At the very bottom on the far left-hand side is this switch to either flat or orthographic view. So we are in orthographic view. If I click this, Watch what happens to my screen. I'm only clicking this, not doing anything else. So suddenly this looks more like a sketch. It's flattened it. It's not how the eyes see it in real life. I don't see any of the walls picking out. There's no perspective. It's very flat. This is what we're going to work in for a little bit. We're going to kind of go back and forth. So from this point, everyone, let me just untoggle that and show you that again. So at this point, you can follow along. So you're going to first navigate by using your orientation cube and single clicking front view. It should snap to that front perspective view. And then now click the switch to flat view button on the far lower, far middle side and the last button on the bottom. And it should flatten it. So everyone's screen should look just like this. Maybe your ring is thicker, maybe it's bigger, maybe you're more scrolled in, but you should look like this, including this lack of perspective. So at this point, we need to now, this was a 2-finger ring, not a 1-finger ring. And again, if you get lost at the next part, if there's one bit that sticks you and you just can't get past it, that's fine. Just follow along with a single ring. You can still make this. You can make this ring as a single knuckle or a single finger ring. Okay, so now we want to go and get our second finger, right? So we're going to go back to the duplicate button because now you know this. So single click your ring shank, hit duplicate, and I saw it blink. I know it's there. I'm just going to single click one of them and I'm going to use my arrow buttons on my keyboard. I'm not even going to drag it with my mouse. I'm just going to start tapping my arrow buttons and you can see my duplicate ring shank starts to move. I'm going to kind of land it right there. And now you understand why we use this flat view. So go ahead and do that. So again, you're going to single click your ring shank. You're going to duplicate it. You're going to see it blink on screen. And then you're going to select it and you're going to use the arrows to move one of them over. And you don't worry that these are not perfectly touching. We're going to cut so much of this away anyway. In terms of the spacing, I do recommend it not being in this position. That's going to probably be a little bit too tight. It's going to make your fingers feel like they're getting kind of like tied together. I do recommend having a little bit of space or a decent amount of space. If you look at your hands and you're like, whoa, I have really big gaps in my fingers, you might want to err on the side of a little more space. If you look at your hands and you feel like, whoa, my fingers are like super squished together, I could never imagine having something like splitting it apart, then maybe go a little bit tighter here. For me, I'm going to land right about there. So everyone sort of decide, like, are you erring on the side of too much or a lot of space or less space? But I would kind of use like one arrow click. I wouldn't really, I wouldn't go like that unless you really have a distinct finger placement or hand placement. I would get pretty close like that. Okay, so at this point, we are going to, this is now sort of sitting here and waiting for some other features to be added. So we're going to click both of these. So select them or bounding box. You can still bounding box select here. And we're going to lock these and just watch what happens when I hit lock. So lock is next to hide. It's the padlock. So if I click lock, I still have two shapes. The padlock has now turned purple and my shapes have highlighted in purple as compared to blue, which is the normal. So when I click out of this, they look just like normal objects. But when I click, it shows that this is locked. If I click and drag, I can't do anything. Locking is as it sounds. It locks the object, which cannot be edited. Don't worry, it's not permanent. We're going to undo it, but let me just show you that again. Oops, I may not be able to undo. I have to just unlock. So go ahead and do this. Select both of your ring shanks. Verify that two of them are selected and then click lock. And then just double check that both of them have the purple highlight around them. Okay. So we are going to kind of move back out so you can watch my screen now. Now you'll see when I scroll way out how weird this work plane looks. That's because we're in that flat view. If you switch to perspective view, this is much more pleasing and much more true to reality. We're going to keep it there just because we're going to go right back to that pretty shortly. So at this point, you should have 2 locked cylinders on your screen. You can select them, but you really can't do anything else to them. So we're going to now grab another cylinder from the shape menu. So grab that cylinder, place it in front, and go ahead and change the color. I'm going to go to hot pink. Just change it to something that's distinctly not orange. So I will do that again for all of you. So you were here. We're just going to kind of rotate out so we can get a different viewpoint. Grab a cylinder solid, and you're going to change the color. Okay, so the next steps that we're going to do, it's like we were making those ring bands again, but we're making a much smaller little ring band. So we're going to single click our maybe pink cylinder. You're going to do that same thing, rotate it by 90 degrees to get it in the same orientation as your cylinders are. And you're going to increase the number of sides to 64 so that it's equally smooth. And just to kind of backtrack, I'm going to show you guys real fast, just so that you know what we're doing. So right now, we are building this little arc that connects these two. It's going to be, if you look at my feed, my camera right now, it's going to be this little arch right here. That's the connection between these ring shanks that will eventually eliminate the rest of the ring. So we're making this like little arc right there. So everyone just take a moment to ensure that you've got your new cylinder in a different color, not orange, and that you have, just doing it again, you have rotated it by 90 degrees. You have also increased the number of sides to 64. So everyone should have this like funny little, like, it looks like glasses and like a peg nose or something. It's like smiling at me. I just need like a little like furry mustache. Someone model that for me and then show it to me. It'll be great. Okay. So now that we're here, everyone should be here. So as I said before, we are about to go back to this front flat view. So again, let's use that navigational cube up in the upper right left corner and click front, snap us to the front, and your screen should still look like this sort of flatter view. If your screen looks like this, it's no problem. Just select the orthographic flat view toggle. So again, we were right here. We're just going to use the front orientation cube, and you can follow along and do this now. Use your front orientation cube to snap to the front view and make sure that you're at this flat view, not the sort of true to reality, but not helpful right now, perspective view. Okay. Also, I love that I still have 13 people hanging in there, so I feel like you guys are going to make it to the end with me. So thanks for hanging in there. We're getting close. We're getting close. Okay. So now we have to resize this to make that little arc, right? Okay. Before we do that, I want to call out a new feature of Tinkercad that you probably don't know about. So if you follow my cursor down to the lower right corner of the screen, you'll see this snap grid. And I haven't talked about this so far yet. So if you look at snap grid, everyone's grid is going to say 1 millimeter. And that basically means that we are moving. Remember when we slid our cylinder over, we duplicated it and we moved it over, and it moved in these, like, I'll show you, it moved in these like increments. Those are 1 millimeter increments that it's moving in. So for our purposes, we are going to change that to 0.25 millimeters. And what that means, just watch for now. So what that means is when I use my arrows, those increments of movement are much smaller. They're 0.25 millimeters, or a quarter of a millimeter, not 1 millimeter. And so I'll show you why we're going to do this. So go ahead and everyone change your snap grid from 1 millimeter to 0.25 millimeters. And nothing's going to happen on screen. It's just that if you want to sort of test it out, you could select or single click to select your new pink cylinder, and you can move it, and you'll notice that the moving increments are much smaller. It's moving less each time you click it. Okay. So what we're going to do right now, I'm going to get really close so that you can see this. So everyone watch my screen. Verify your snap grid is 0.25 down here at the bottom. So I'm going to size this down, but I'm not going to really tell you a measurement that you size it down. So just watch for a second. So we're trying to make that connection arc, right? Or that arch. So I'm going to size it down by holding shift, because holding shift, let me show you what happens when I don't hold shift. If I select this top node and I start dragging it, I'm flattening this, and this is now an oval or an ellipse. I don't want to do that. I want to maintain my circular cylinder. So if I hold shift and I'm doing the same thing, clicking and dragging, now it's restraining the proportions to be a cylinder. So that's what you want to do. So make sure that when you're scaling down, your cylinder remains circular and doesn't turn into an oval. So how much you scale it down is a little bit like, I can't really tell you that. It depends on a lot of different things. Let me just show you what we're doing, though, so that you can understand what you're trying to achieve. So I'm scaling mine down. I've clicked. I'm using my arrows. Arrow, arrow. And I'm going to start moving this into a position. So right now, it looks like I'm pretty centered. I can't actually use my up arrow. Nothing happens right now. It only works side to side. But I have this arrow, and I can start dragging this up. So now you can understand why that smaller increment of movement is important. And this is essentially what I'm trying to achieve. I am trying to get this smaller cylinder. It could be bigger than this. Basically, if your cylinder is bigger, it's going to sit lower. If your cylinder is smaller, it's going to sit higher. So it's something that you have to kind of like play with. And I'm going to really give you some time. Excuse me. Not coronavirus. I'm going to give you too soon. I'm going to give you some time to really figure this out. And I'm going to kind of just show it a couple of different ways. So let me just kind of backtrack quite a few times, and you could just watch me again while I do that. So I have a 0.25 millimeter snap grid or movement increment. I am now going to hold shift, click and drag to scale this down. I'll do this one a bit bigger so you can kind of see that. And now I'm using my sideways arrows to navigate over. So in this case, I actually have to move this. If I like that size, I have to move this down, because what I'm looking for right here, I may have moved it too far down. So what I'm looking for right here is this new smaller cylinder to not be, you basically don't want it to be like hanging over this edge. You also don't want it to be like undercutting and having a big gap. You want to really ideally, it's nearly touching right there. And this is such a tiny little space that any kind of polishing in the finishing process, if you do have this ring cast, this will all smooth out. So don't worry if it's not perfect, but you want to really make it look like these two little points are touching. So I'm just going to do that. Hey, Diana. I'm just going to do that one more time. Sorry, shouldn't have done that. That was confusing. Just so that you guys can really, again, see that, and then I'll do it a fourth time where you can follow along. Okay, so last time, large pink cylinder. We're going to, it might help actually to even move it roughly in the center before, doesn't matter. We're going to hold shift, scale this down. I wasn't anywhere near the center. I'm going to zoom in so I can really see what I'm doing. Use my arrows to get this centered up. And I'm going to drag my cylinder till it's right there. So this is a really good fit right here. It's a little bit hanging over, but it's not a big deal. It's going to be totally polished away. Okay, so this is what you're aiming for. And the critical feature here is that the this connection point, imagine that there's a single like pencil dot right there. You want that pencil dot to be touching the edge of the pink cylinder and the inner edge of the orange cylinder. Because essentially what we're trying to do is make a connection arc that goes like this. And we want this to be smooth curve right there. That's what we're going for. Please, please, please mention now if you are like, oh my gosh, I didn't figure that out. Also, if you are just like not getting the hang of this, you're not visualizing it, it's just you need like a little bit more time, feel free to just pause right here. You can still follow along. You can still actually do a lot of the rest of this. But if you don't want to trim this away and group all this, you're just like, I don't know if I've done this right. That's fine. Pause and at least continue the class, and you can go back and watch the replay and take some more time and really analyze what's going on here. So I'm going to do it one more time just to make sure that we caught that, because I know it's a little bit weird. So large cylinder, hold shift, scale it down, and you can follow along and do this now if you haven't already. Scroll in a little bit, use my arrows to move my cylinder sideways. And then now I need to close that little gap. So I'm going to pull my circle up, and there we go. A nice tangent connection right there. There's some 3D modeling terminology for you. Tangency. You can impress someone and be like, look at my tangency here. Okay, so no one is screaming or giving me like the crying emoji. So we're just going to keep moving forward. Okay, so that's as long as I'm going to spend on any of this. So I promise you we're going to keep moving. And we're getting so close, you guys. So close to the really fun part. Okay, just make sure. All right. So we are now going to, we're going to go kind of back out so that you can sort of see. So don't worry, you can see my little now it looks like a little eraser. My little eraser now is like way far away from my ring shanks. That's totally fine. We're going to fix that. So really fast, we're going to select both of these original locked ring shanks, and we're going to unlock them. And then, so I clicked the lock button, which unlocked it. They're now both blue. And now we're going to hide them. So let me just show you that again, and you can follow along. So these were locked, right? We were here. We want to now unlock these and hide them so that we can focus on a different part of this modeling process. So unlocking by hitting the purple padlock, and now click the light bulb to hide them. And again, look up here and verify that you have this selectable black hollow light bulb symbol. Okay, so moving along. So now we're going to do that same duplicate and hide on our little eraser cylinder, as I'm now referring to him. I just can't see anything but an eraser. So we're going to single click that, duplicate up here in the upper left-hand corner. We're going to duplicate that, and we are going to hide one of those. So at this point, you're kind of like praying that you just hid that cylinder. We'll find out in a second. So I'm actually just going to do that again. Pardon me, I've got to just sort of undo this. So I'm going to hide these. I'm just going to, okay, just for my own peace of mind, I now have two of these. I've duplicated the little pink cylinder, and I'm hiding one of those. So now I have 3 items hidden. I have a copy, a duplicate of my pink cylinder, and I have my 2 ring shanks hidden, and I can see that things are hidden up here. Okay. So we are now going to turn this into a hole, the remaining small pink cylinder. So single click, turn it into a hole, and it should now turn into that little transparent, translucent, stripy object. Okay, so go ahead and do that. So single click your pink cylinder, convert it to be a hole. Okay. So now a little bit more math. This is the last math for the evening. So remember how I told you way back when, like 45 minutes ago at this point, that whatever you decided your ring thickness was going to be. So from this view, and it's so high, look at me down on the screen. So the width right here, the thickness of the ring band. For me, it was 2 millimeters. So I had said, try and remember that or write it down. This is now where you're going to need to recall that measurement. So hopefully you all know it. Mine was 2 millimeters in this, sort of like this dimension right here. So what we're going to do, remember how when we were first taking our original cylinder that was the size of our finger, our ring size, and then we increased it to account for the wall thickness or the thickness of the band. So I increased mine by 4 millimeters. I'm now going to decrease by 4 millimeters. So what that means for me is that I am, and these are going to be different for all of you depending on how you scaled your small cylinder. But the critical number here is that if you had a thickness of 2 millimeters, you are now removing 2 times 2, 4 millimeters. If you had a thickness of 3 millimeters, you're now doing 3 times 2, so 6. So you need to reduce this down. So I'm at 7.5. I didn't know that until I clicked it. I'm now going to 3.5, and in my height, 3.5. So I now have I've sized the cylinder down 2 millimeters on either side, which matches to that 2 millimeter band thickness that I had set like 40 minutes ago. So hopefully everyone has that number. No one's like, oh, I didn't write that down. Again, if you are, so if you did forget it for some reason, that's okay. I'll kind of show you a little trick later. But so just kind of hang in there for a second, and I'll show you in a second. So I'm showing that again so everyone can go ahead and do this. I am reminding myself that my ring thickness was 2 millimeters. So I have to double that and subtract 4 millimeters from whatever this measurement is. 7.5 minus 4 is 3.5. And 7.5 in the height minus 4 is 3.5. And I'm not going to worry about this other dimension for a second. I just want to make sure that I now have a perfect circle in that view. So everyone go ahead and do that. Okay. And again, throw up a flare if you need some help or you need me to show that again. Okay, so if everyone has sized their small cylinder down, we're going to go ahead and show these objects. I do see on here that I have quite a few more folks that have joined the class. If you're just joining now, we are pretty far along, but this class will be posted. I have a pre-recorded version of it. I might leave the live one up anyway. That will be posted sometime this evening. So certainly you can continue to watch. We have like probably less than a half hour left. And you can always go back and start the class over and then work at your own pace. But we are pretty far along, and you'll kind of see that in a second. So, okay. Everyone should have sized down their smaller cylinder. So we want to now bring all those objects back that are hidden up here. So now this is like moment of truth. Click on that. Whew. Okay, so you should have, let's take a little tally. You should have 2 identical ring bands and a small, but not super small cylinder that maybe be pink. Mine's pink. And you should have the cylinder hole that you just sized down. So you should have 4 objects on screen. And again, let me just show you what that was. Oops. I'm just backtracking so I can show you. So we were just here. We're going to show all and make sure that we have 2 ring shanks, a small cylinder, and a very small cylinder hole. Okay. At this point, though, I want to just say, sorry, don't need you yet. Let's hide you. So we just want to have on screen just the small cylinder and the super small cylinder. And you can verify that your ring shanks are hidden up here. Okay, let me just show that again. So take one cylinder, one ring shank, take the other ring shank, hide them, verify up here that they're hidden, and then we're left with these two. Okay, so now you can imagine where we're going with this. One is a hole, one is a solid. So we're going to use that align tool again that we have come to love so much. So single click and hold shift to select both, or drag a bounding box to select both. And we're going to go back to that align tool. And that align tool again is up in the upper right-hand corner. And you'll know that you've selected it because you'll see all these little nodes. And now they seem even more confusing because they're so far apart from me. But I know what I'm doing because we've already done this before. We want center alignment, all center alignment. And again, those three nodes on the side are probably going to be the same, all three highlighted or all three grayed out, because the width of these two objects were likely the same. So let me just show that again. So I was here. I'm bounding box selecting both of them. I'm going up to my align tool that I am now old friends with, single clicking, get a little closer, and I want central alignment points. And if I unclick, deselect, I should be able to scroll around and this looks the same on both sides. Okay. So at this point, we just allow these guys to do their thing by bounding box selecting both of them, verifying that both are in fact selected, and we're going to group them together up also in the upper right hand corner. So group, and now one is cut from the other, and it should cut clean through. If for some reason you didn't get your inner cylinder hole cut through, if it looks, let me just sort of fake this for a second. If yours looks like this, and you're like, ooh, mine's capped, what has happened? That means that your hole did not extend all the way through your cylinder. And so you need to either double check your alignment, and oops, I was missing alignment over here. Or if you feel like I did that, it's still not working, you can always single click that hole and just make it longer. Make it way bigger. That will do the same thing because a hole doesn't have anything to do outside of being cutting away from a solid. Okay, so everyone should be left with this. So again, I'm just going to backtrack from the point of alignment. So giving you some time to do that if you haven't yet done it. So selecting both objects, aligning them by their centers, verifying visually that they do in fact go all the way through. Bounding box selecting both. Two shapes are selected. One of them is a hole, one of them is a solid. Group. Okay, hole is cut straight through. All right, I had told you that if you didn't have, if you didn't remember what your band thickness was and you're like, I don't know how much smaller to make it, just go ahead and leave yours in that shape right now. Just get it here, even if they're like roughly the same size, and just leave it there for now. And I'll address that in the next step. But everyone else, hopefully everyone, is right here. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to do to this little guy, so this is now about to be the little arc that connects the two rings, but it's far too deep or far too thick. So remember we were at 7.5 in that width. So now we want this to be the same size as the thickness of our ring. So just look down at the corner where so we want this to be this thickness now. So for me, that was also 2. That was the first, that was the other dimension outside of the ring size itself. It was the first width that you did. So perhaps it's 2. You'll quickly know if you've done it the right size. And don't worry if you're like, I don't remember what that was. It was so long ago. We'll figure it out together. Okay. I knew that mine was 2. So I have now sized it to 2. Okay, so go ahead and do that. And again, you just typical resizing, select the object, hover. It's that side measurement that you want to. And yours might not say 7.5. Yours could be a difference, probably 6, 8, 9. But mine was 7.5, and I just want it to be the same thickness from the side view as my ring shanks. Okay, so now that we're here, we are going to go back and show all of these objects. And now you should have 3 objects showing. You should have 2 identical ring shanks. So just really fast, if you didn't catch that last one, here's how you can tell what your thickness is. Click here, look at this measurement right there, 2 millimeters. You want this measurement right here to be the same. So if it's 3, 3, and 3, it should be the same on both. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little trick, a little tool. I am going to temporarily group these 2 objects together. You can see that they're not even touching, so nothing is going to visibly happen to them. But let me just show you what happens. So I'm actually just going to move my little cylinder out of the way. I'm going to drag a bounding box over just these 2 objects, make sure that this is not selected, and I'm going to group these 2. And so really nothing changed. Nothing has cut away from itself or added to itself. They've just they're just arbitrarily grouped. But watch what happens. If I grab one, they move together. So you can use this as a tool to like temporarily marry objects together if it makes it easier to work with. In this case, it will make our lives easier because I now need to align this with this. If I have these grouped temporarily, they now have a center point because these 2 rings are symmetrical. If, however, you made one of these rings smaller than the other, you will not be able to do this because your center point will not be in the center because your rings were different sizes. This only works if your rings are the same size and they're exactly the same as each other. So keep that in mind. You'll have to do this a little more manually. So let me just show that again. All right, so I can select these individually, but I want to bounding box select the 2 of them together, and I want to group them together. And I know that they're grouped because when I select one, the other one highlights with it. So just go ahead and do that now. Okay. So moving right along. So we are going to go back to that align tool. It's one of the most heavily used tools that I use in Tinkercad. So we're going to select all of these. We just want to get all this just like aligned together. So bounding box, select all of them. Use the align tool. So now we want, this one's a little bit different. We want center points, but we don't want every center point. So if I click the center point there, you'll see that they all turn gray, and that's because they're all the same thickness. If I click the center point here, you now can see where we're going with this. This little cylinder is exactly centered between these 2 objects. You don't want to click this one because see where my little cylinder jumps up to? That's not what we're looking for. So you're only going to have this central alignment and then these 3 over here. So let me just show you that again and go ahead and do this. Bounding box, select all of them. So you've got now all 3 objects together. You're only going to see 2 up here because 2 of these items are grouped and they're acting as one object. You're going to use align, and you're going to look at this side center alignment point, which will make all 3 of them gray, as well as this front alignment. So your screen should really look very, very similar to this. Let's see, yeah. And so now, like if you just were to navigate to the front, you can see here's my nice overlap right there. All of that should still be the same. Okay, so again, throw up a comment if you need me to show that again or if I'm moving too fast or anything. So now we're going to just really be trimming things away, and then we're going to get to the actual script design. So we're in the home stretch now. I feel like I've said that like 3 times now, but I swear we are. Okay, so now that we have these objects, you don't have to move yours. I'm just moving it to get a better view on mine. Now that we've got these all 3 and we're like, okay, yeah, this looks good. They're clearly the same thickness. Nothing is hanging out beyond where it should. Great. So we are now going to add another object, a new object, not a cylinder. Look, we've made this entire way with just cylinders. We are going to grab a box hole. So select that box hole in the Shapes menu. I'm just going to show you right now, and drop that just somewhere in front of your objects, of all of your little cylinders. So again, that was Basic Shape menu. Grab the very top box hole, which is the gray sort of stripy box, not the red box, and drop it somewhere in the front. Now we are going to go back to that lock tool, and we're going to lock everything except for that box hole. So you're going to select your grouped your ring bands, your orange cylinders, and you're going to lock those, and they turn purple or highlight purple. You're also going to select your little center cylinder, and you're going to lock that, and that turns purple. A little hard to tell if you had a pink one like I did, but see, you can see it's purple, but also you can verify up in the Shape menu where it shows that it's locked. So go ahead and do that, and then we're again, so I will show that again. Just going to backtrack for a second. So to lock all 3 cylinders, you're going to select your grouped ring bands, lock them. They highlight purple. Select your little center and lock. You could also just bounding box select all of this and lock it together. Doesn't matter. Okay, so now we are going to navigate again to that front view using the orientation cube up in the left corner and snap to that front view. Okay, so you're going to kind of, let me just show you that again. You were probably somewhere over here, maybe over here. Orientation cube, navigate to the front view, and make sure that you are in fact looking at this flat view, that you're not, if yours looks like this for any reason, you just need to click the toggle to the flat view. Okay, so all of our little other objects are locked besides our box hole. Okay, so hang in there with me and let me show you this one thing which can be a little bit like a puzzle in your mind for a second. Just watch what we're going to do. So what I am trying to cut away, look at the screen, my smiling face. Hello, hello. I don't know why I keep looking not, yeah. Look at me. So we are trying to obviously cut away this stuff in here so that these 2 shanks have material, don't have any, the 2 shanks are no longer circles. They just have this nice little like curve right here. So we're cutting away all this metal in between there. So I'm going to use this box hole to cut away, but what I want to cut away, now watch my cursor, I want to cut away everything above my pink smaller cylinder. And I'm going to cut it roughly to the 12 o'clock. If you imagine that these ring shanks are a clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, we're going to kind of cut to the 12 o'clock. It doesn't matter if you're a little bit too much cutting, a little too little cutting. We're going to probably go back and trim it once you have your word placed. So this is just kind of now to like clean this up a little bit. So just watch for what I'm doing and I'll do it again. So I'm going to start by making this box a little bit shorter. Oops, I have to go this way. A little bit shorter. That might be too short. We'll see. I'm going to move it up. So this is the crucial area right here. Pay attention to this, the bottom of this box. Remember we were talking about those little, like this little perfect intersection point right there. If you dropped a point right at the overlap, that's where you want to cut. If you are like, oh, I'm not totally following, you can err on the side of a little bit too low. But don't, so if I cut it up here, these little like triangles of material are going to stay there and I don't want them. I'm just going to center my box just to make it more even. So I'm not worrying about what's going on up here. I'm just worrying about the bottom edge of my box and where it's lining up on my cylinders. So I'm going to move this down and then I'm going to scroll in so I can show you. So I want this box to cut away all of this orange ring shank band so that I'm only left with the pink. I'm not going to cut the pink. I'm only going to cut the orange. So you want to really like this bottom edge should line up with these little like the perfect little overlap points where you have tangency right here. Now I'm going to worry about what's going on up here. Okay, so if I cut it here, I have all this excess. So I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to make mine a little bit wider and then recenter it. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect because we're probably going to end up trimming away a little bit more. But I just want, like, really you want to get rid of this like quadrant right here, this like section. So anything that this box hole is overlapping on the orange is going to be cut away. It's going to disappear. So just think about it that way. If you have stripes over the orange, that orange is about to disappear. So let me just back way up and either, I'll do that a third time. So follow along now if you're confused still. Otherwise, go ahead and do this with me. So I have my box hole. I'm going to first just scale it down a little bit and move it up. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. And I'm looking for the bottom of this box hole to align with this like intersection point between the orange cylinder and the pink cylinder. So for me, I'm going to center this, and I'm watching this little dashed line so that it's in the center. And I'm going to move mine up. Pretty good right there. I'm going to also widen this a little bit and then recenter it. See, it's a little bit off center right there. That's okay. I'm not concerned. We'll fix it later. Okay, last time, and then we're moving on. All right, so box hole, scale it down a little bit, get it on screen, move it up to the placement. If you, hopefully no one is terribly lost here, but we want to just look for that bottom alignment. I'm actually going to move mine up a little bit more. Third time's a charm. And I'm pretty good there. So everyone should just ask yourself now, where are the stripes overlapping my orange ring shank? Because that's going to be cut away in the next step. All right, so this is your last call to throw up a comment in case you are totally lost or need me to show that again. Okay, looks like we're all good to go. You guys are professionals. Okay, moving on. And we are only going to do this one more time, and then we're like pretty good to go. Okay, so let's now just kind of pull out of this view a little bit and check out what we have going here. Okay, so I know that my box hole is in the right spot because I just aligned it, but it's not overlapping. So in my case, I need to align these objects. These objects, my cylinders, are all locked, but I can still use the align tool on them. What that will mean is that it just moves the box and not the cylinders. So I'm going to select everything on screen, cylinders, box, everything, and I'm going to go and I'm going to hit align. And I am just going to hit this one back alignment node. Okay, so you can see what happens. You can see my box has intersected everything. It's still raised up where I left it. So I'm just going to show that again. So my box hole was here. I'm going to, it might actually help to navigate to the top view. You just want to make sure that you're like pretty like bird's eye view. It's fine if it's a little bit off, but just get pretty bird's eye view or click that top view navigational cube. Yay, Diana! Diana's here still. Woohoo! Diana's taken this class before and she's a pro. So I assume she just sped through and caught up. Glad you're here still, Diana. Okay. So we are dragging a bounding box to select everything. We are going to use the align tool, and we're only going to align this upper back corner. Really what that means is that this is my alignment point right here. Think of this as like a little like sewing pin, right? With a little like head on it. You're aligning everything on the metal needle of that sewing pin. I don't know. That's what it looks like to me. So just to kind of look around, make sure that everything still looks good. You want to see that you do have the overlap of the hole back here, because again, we're cutting all this away. Okay. All right. So now we're getting so close. So we are now going to unlock unlock everything, or unlock just the large ring shanks. It doesn't really matter. So we're going to unlock that. Just make sure that you can select it, and there's the blue highlight. And then we are going to select the ring shanks. They are probably still grouped together. If they're not, just select both of them and make sure that you've got both of them. Select also the box. You can also do this easily by dragging a bounding box from the top and just grabbing these top 3 objects. And now when we do group, suddenly this makes sense. So now there's probably like, right, this is what we're looking for. So I'm just going to do that again. I'm going to do that again from my alignment. Oops, let me not drag that way. Okay, so just say that you're here. We are going to select everything, align, hit my top sewing needle for alignment, look around, check it out. Okay, this looks good. Unlock my ring band cylinders by selecting them so they highlight purple, and then unlock. And then bounding box, select just the top, guys. You don't want to select this bottom cylinder, just the top. And group. And your ring band should now look just like this. I mean, really, you might have this a little higher. You might have a little more cut, a little less cut. But really, you want to be now, this really starts to look like that double knuckle ring, double finger ring. Okay. So hopefully that last step wasn't too painful for everyone, because we're about to do it again. And this is the last thing. So go ahead and select everything, and we're just going to lock it again just to keep it sort of secure and in place. So just, again, bounding box, select everything, and hit lock just so that you can verify that everything is highlighted in purple and it's locked. Okay, so going back, and now we're going to cut away this area. Hopefully this is easier since we just did this. You can kind of be like, okay, I know where we're going with this. We're going to grab another box hole in the shape menu, right? I'll do that again. Everything is locked. Verify that it's all locked. Grab a box hole in the shape menu, drop it somewhere in the front, and then navigate. Sorry, I'm just trying to move my steps. Then navigate to the front view and then scroll in a bit. So at this point, we all kind of know what we're about to do. We're about to cut all the pink away on the bottom. This pink up here is good. We're good to go with that. It's this on the bottom that we're cutting away. So to do that, it's the same steps as before. So just watch for a second, but it's kind of opposite. Instead of moving things up, moving things down. So I'm actually just going to size this box down rather than moving it. I will get it a little bit smaller. Don't need it quite so big. Okay, so now where we want to orient this. So this pink is going to connect and blend into the orange. This is that curve that we're looking for right here. We want to get rid of all of this pink below that's hanging off. If you like that as a design element, knock yourself out. Keep that. If you're just like, oh, I can't do this again, keep it. You'll just have like a little ring there. You could, I don't know, throw a charm on it, have a little bell, annoy the hell out of your colleagues. I'm going to cut it away, and this is how you do it. So I'm looking for, where do I align now my top edge to cut away all this pink? So I'm just going to get mine using my arrow keys, get a little centered just for visibility. I'm going to move this down, and that's what I'm looking for to cutting. See, it's right there. You have a little wiggle room. I can move that up, and now I know that I'm safely cutting all this away. So that's what we're looking for right there. So I'm just going to do this one more time, and then hopefully everyone's able to follow that. I'll give you a little bit of a second afterwards to kind of catch up, or again, throw up a comment if you need me to do it again. So I'm just going to start by sizing my box hole down, just getting a little bit smaller, contain it in here, center it. And now I'm just looking for, where do I want the top edge of my box hole to line up? I want to make sure that I'm definitely cutting away all the bottom of this pink. So I'm pretty good right there. I'm checking the comments, so please do, if you need me to show that again, please let me know. And I do see a couple more people that have jumped into the class. Thank you for joining. We're actually kind of winding down the class right now, but you can definitely check out the YouTube channel. As of later tonight, I will have this class pre-recorded and on here so that you can always come back and start from the beginning and take your time, or feel free to follow along and just sort of see how this ends. But we're about like 10 minutes away or so. Okay, so everyone should be here. No one has thrown any emojis up saying to stop. So again, whoa, my box hole is really far away. That's okay. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to align all this. So I am going to bounding box select everything. I can see that things are still locked up here. I'm going to use an align tool. Navigate to the top, align tool. And again, it's that top edge or that top needle pin that I want to be aligned. And I want to scroll in, verify that my hole is going to cut clean through the pink area, which it is. So I'm good. So let me just show that again and go ahead and follow along. So use maybe the navigational top view, select everything, and align upper right corner. You guys are probably all like pros with the align tool now. This one is a very align heavy demo. Top needle or alignment node back in the upper right corner. And now we do have to unlock our pink cylinder, our little cylinder. So just select it, unlock it. You should see the blue highlight happening now. And now we're going to select the small pink cylinder that is unlocked, select the box. This, you'll notice, works really fast. If I bounding box select, I actually am going to have a problem here because these are locked still. So I do want to select by clicking once, hold shift, select my box hole, verify that there are two shapes selected, and I'm going to use the group tool to cut away. And there you have it, friends. You have your finished ring shank, mostly finished. I'm going to do that one more time, starting with the align. So I'm going to grab everything. So if you haven't done this, go ahead and do this now. I'm going to align that top node. Going to kind of relook at it. Select to unlock my small cylinder. Unlock. Select my cylinder, hold shift, select my box hole, group them together. Okay. And just for our own like peace of mind right now, let's just go ahead and like give ourselves the gratification of joining all of these. So you're going to have to unlock your cylinders. So click the cylinders, hit the unlock button or the lock button, and now when you select everything, you should see two objects are grouped because these are probably still grouped together, but you want to basically select your cylinders and your little center small partial cylinder and group these together, and now they all change to the same color. Yours might have changed pink, it might have changed orange. I don't always know why it changes one color or the other. It's a fun little surprise. But now you have one object. It is your ring band. Okay. So now let's get to the last and arguably the most enjoyable part of this entire tutorial, modeling the script word. Is there anyone in here who's just like needs me to show you anything, needs me to address anything? Throw up a comment now if you do. Otherwise, we're going to move on. Everyone go ahead and change that perspective orthographic view down here so that you can just kind of give yourself more of a regular view, vantage point. It kind of looks sort of funny right now. Click that, and now you're in your, whoa, this is much better, much more pleasing. And then maybe recenter this if like for some reason your object is like way over there or something, just kind of get it back in the center. This is a sort of reset moment before we finish off this ring. And this last part is really quite simple. It's sort of like one big step. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and have you lock this band just so that we're not really going to deal with it at the moment. So just go ahead and select it and lock it. Okay, so I hope that you've been thinking, amongst other things, I hope you've been thinking about the word that you're going to use. I actually haven't thought about the word that I'm going to use. I do know the word I'm going to use. It might be kind of long. It's okay. So think about the word that you're going to use. All right, so new tool here, Scribble. This is kind of new to not AutoCAD, Tinkercad. It is, I don't know, maybe like a year old, but I'm like thrilled that they added this. So this is a pretty like editable feature. So single click, just watch for now. So click on Scribble and drop Scribble anywhere. It doesn't really matter. So suddenly you're in a different window, and we have no idea how we got here, but here we are. This is like your drawing panel, your drawing board right now. So is that the word that I'm going to do? I'm going to do yay again, just because I know what that looks like. So I can now draw anything that I want. So I've single clicked and held, and I'm now drawing. And I'm holding the mouse the entire time. So this is like a little bit daunting if you don't like cursive, if you don't like your handwriting. And I'll give you some tips. Don't worry too much about it right now. We're not going to spend too much time right here. I just want to show you how to do this because you can go back and like clean this up and do a lot more work on this. Because like it's a little wobbly, it's fine. But you see up here that there's a preview now. This has now become an object. So when I hit done, I now have an object right here. And this object is editable the way that any other object is editable. I can rotate it. I can do all these things to it. So let me just show you that again and follow along this time. So you're going to go and you're going to pick up the tool Scribble in the basic shapes menu. You're going to drop it in your work plane, and it's going to automatically pull you to this this other sort of topward down drawing pad. So at this point, you now have this little light blue cursor, and just start like drawing. Start your word. Again, like if you don't know what your word is, you're like not loving it, don't worry about it. Just get something so that we can finish the class. Your name is a great one to start. I'm actually just going to write name. So let's all just start to write out what your word or your name should be. If you don't do script, you can write it just in like regular. So let me just show you. Whoa. Somehow my type is even worse than my script. You can do that as well. But these objects will be the same. They will be one object. You won't be able to divide them up. So make sure you only do one. So I'm just going to, one more time, do that again, grabbing Scribble, dropping it in the center over there. And then let's see, what word do I'm going to write exit. Don't ask me why I'm writing exit. I'm just writing exit. Okay, so everyone should kind of be wrapping up. Actually, this will be a good demo right here. Woo. Everyone should kind of be wrapping up their word. And again, don't worry if it's not perfect. Here's what you can always, let me just say that. Don't worry, I'm going to show you some tips on how to clean this up later. But I want to make sure to kind of wrap this up because I know we're going pretty far over time. So get something down, even if it's not your final phrase or your final word. And okay, we now need to get this guy in place. So you have a decision to make here. You have to size this down. So the first thing that we're going to do to size it, let me just catch up my notes. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do to size this is going to be to position it from the top view. So use the navigational tool or cube and click top. And this is going to help again to jump back into that flat view. This just makes it way easier. So again, that was use the navigational tube to click top, bird's eye view, and then flatten that view like so. All right, so now we're going to grab our word. You should have something and position it roughly where you want it to be. So keep in mind that this ring is now going to cross 2 fingers. So, you know, you might just kind of keep like, all right, this is sort of small. I might actually size this up a little bit just so it's it fills up the ring a little bit more. So you can size this. This is an object. You just happen to have created this object. You can also rotate this. If you're like, oh man, that's not very straight. So rotate it. You can use the arrows here to position it. You know, kind of keep an eye, like you don't want to be having everything like hanging off to one side, right? So I've got a lot of space over here and no space over here. So kind of center it. You can use the align tool here if you want to get a perfect center if you'd like to. You can do that as well. So basically you just want to be in this top view, flat view, and you want to place, sort of resize and place your script or your word wherever you want it to be. So you can tell that my word is sitting too low because my ring band is hanging over the top of it. So I'm also now going to move, I'm going to move this up into position by selecting just the word because my ring shank is locked. Select the word, use my little arrow to drag it up into space. Now you're going to need to navigate to the front view because you want to see what is happening right in here. So right now, I have a little bit of my ring shank sticking out of the bottom. That's okay. All of my actual rings in reality have this to some degree. What you don't want is to cut into your ring diameter because that now you've made your ring smaller by accident. So you want to err on the side of, I'm just putting it up here just for ease of visibility. I want to move this so that my bottom edge of my script is very close, but not below my cutaway. Okay. So move that there. And then let me just, now we have to decide, this is obviously a very chunky, would be a very heavy word, a very heavy ring. We need to size this down. However much you size this down, you can size it this way and just kind of eyeball it. Oh, I like it a little bit chunkier like that. You can say, no, I want this to be pretty dainty. I would not go smaller than about 2 millimeters here. Otherwise, you run the risk of really bending it if you hit your hands. I would go 2 millimeters or higher. I also wouldn't go more than about 5 millimeters because this is going to get really heavy really fast, especially if you have a big word with a lot of letters. So I would say like 2.5 to 4.5 is sort of like the sweet spot. That's what all of my rings are. I'm going to go a little chunkier on this one and go 4. So again, let me just backtrack a little bit. I'm in my front view. I'm verifying that my ring is placed right at the top of my where my fingers sit. It's not dropping below and making my, cutting off where my fingers should be. I'm also going to size this ring by making it shorter. You can also key it in 4 millimeters. Oops, whoa, that was weird. Maybe you can't key it in. Keying it in might actually, let's just try that. Might actually, oh, that was weird. Yeah, so basically you want to get your word positioned. And again, if you don't love it, don't worry, we're not going to finalize it. I'll give you, you'll be able to take the rest of the night if you want to really perfect this. And I'll show you a couple other like little hacks. So the very last thing that we're going to do, so I want to call out something. See how the dot on my I is floating? So obviously you can't print that because it's just totally floating in space. Shapeways won't even allow you to print that. It's going to call it out as being this like floating object. What I can do if you've written not in your words or your letters are not connected in some way or some element is not connected, just use a little object like a box, scale it way down, and just make a little connection in there. So for me, I'm going to go top view and just watch along if this is not the case for you. I'm not going to do this again, dwell on it because not everyone will have this issue. But I'm using the top view to really okay, I'm going to place, I'm going to try and use my rotational guide. Yep, I'm going to kind of place it, use my arrows. And so I know, oh, that's a good connection. Or I could have connected it to the T. Probably would to the I body since that's what it belongs to. And now I have to also move it up and move it into place. So I'm actually going to rotate so I can see what's happening. And this doesn't have to be the same width. I would actually recommend it being smaller so that it's sort of hidden a little bit. So that's essentially what you're going for, right? So from the back, it's there, but from the top, it's sort of sunken in. You'll want to make this though, how tall is this now? You'll want to make this though like 2 millimeters because this is a very small piece. 2 or more. And you want to make sure that this is still not like a fragile break point right here, which, it's sort of tucked away. So that's in case you need that, in case you have any floating objects. If you have letters that you didn't write in cursive, you forgot that like everyone else at the age of 10, you can just connect your individual letters with these little connection points. Don't worry about doing that right now. It will take everyone a different amount of time based on what your letter is, what your word is, and how you've written it out. The last thing that I will call out is this is when I said that don't worry too much about how much you cut away on your ring shank. You're going to end up probably cutting more away anyway. So I just happen to be I've landed in a really good spot. There's a good overlap right there. So this side for me is totally fine, but that's not cute. That little overhang isn't cute. So I want to cut some more away from my ring band. So for right now, I'm actually going to I'm going to unlock my ring band because I know that I have to do some editing. I am going to lock my word and I'm going to lock my little connection point. Anything that's not your ring band, you want to lock that. So now my ring band is free. My word is locked. So what we just did by adding a little connection point, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to use a box hole to create a little cutaway right there. We're just going to trim that little orange triangle piece off. So to do that, and you're going to have you may not have any. You may have chosen the perfect word, and your ring band ends collide right into a great spot, and it's all good. If for some reason your ring band doesn't come far enough, and you have a gap there, then you're going to need to go back and untrim some of this. Hopefully that's not the case. You might even just consider making your letters, your word wider, a bit bigger. Think about on your hand. I know we've been looking at this on screen and it's very large and very zoomed in, but in reality, this is the size of your fingers. So in reality, this ring is like this big. So sometimes I like to do this. I like to actually zoom way, way out and I hold my hand up to my screen so that I can see, oh, wow, in reality, that's the size of the ring. So that exit word that I chose is actually very small. So you might just, think about that before you finalize this. But say that you have 1 or 2 little segments you want to trim away. Use a box. And I'm not really repeating all this a lot because everyone's at a different point now based on their word. So these are just things to keep in mind. But you know how to do all this based on what we've been doing. So if you're still there, you know how to do all this. So grab a box hole and just start by scaling this guy way down, holding shift, scale it way down. So again, top view, and I'm going to start to drag my box hole into the position, even though I know it's sitting too low. Box hole is right there. And I want to essentially just make sure that it is cleanly overlapping all this little area that I want to cut away, this triangle of orange. So I know that that's overlapping everything, but it's in the wrong spot. It's too low. So I've got to move it up. Move it up. Oh, I can't see what's going on. Ah, there we go. And now I can see where it's about to overlap. But look what's happening. Oops, got a little like shelf right there. That's not good. That means that I need to maybe make this a taller box, just so it cleanly cuts away all the orange. Don't worry that it's overlapping the word itself. I'm not going to be cutting from that. I'm only cutting the orange. So you can see where I'm cutting away. I'm going to kind of look underneath, make sure that all of this area is cut away. I may actually go one more over, a little tighter. So this is kind of a funny spot. You may have to like do this a couple times until you like understand like, what am I trimming? Do I like that much trim? Fine. Okay. So you may have a little box hole on both sides if you need to cut away on both sides. I just happened that I didn't have to on this side. And so now at this point, I'm happy. I'm going to select my box hole. I'm going to select my ring shank, and I am going to group, trim it away, and just verify. So now I have a really nice, from the top view, I have a really nice ring. There's nothing hanging out where it shouldn't be, and I'm good to go. So at this point, you're pretty much done. If you're like, oh, that was too long, I'm out of here, I will just say you can use the export tool when you're ready to export, and then check out my video, which is not online yet, but I will put it on YouTube probably this weekend on how to use Shapeways. If you want to hang in there for a couple of tips on how to, clean this up, or if you're like, oh my God, my handwriting is terrible, that's totally fine. You can clean this up. So I'm going to unlock this, and let me just show you. You can just really watch this and then go and then spend all the time that you want doing this. So now you understand how 3D modeling is time consuming and can be a bit of a rabbit hole. So when I select my scribble and I select edit scribble, it takes me back in. And I've done all of that work. I've positioned, I've sized it. That's all good. It's not going to change. But I'm like, okay, let's actually do some time, clean this up. So right now, when your cursor has a blue hover over it, it means that you're drawing. So that's now adding. You can see up here in the preview that this has been added. It's like a little cloud, kind of cute. You can undo. If you want to erase things, you can go down and select the eraser. And now you have a black circle. And the black circle is your eraser. So I'm going to scroll in. I'm going to try and make this a little more round by kind of like erasing a little bit. And now just think about this. Think about how small this is. So some of these like little edges that aren't perfect here, this is all going to get polished down. So this is going to be in reality a lot smoother than it looks right now. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. Like if you have like a super jagged edge like that, it's probably going to still show up. But you don't have to get like so insane about, oh, this looks like it's some flat faces. It's going to look rounded. It's going to be polished down. So at this point, if you're like, oh, oops, the little tail on my X was a little bit too tall, you can trim some off. Be careful that you don't want to get too close to here. So like, ooh, I'm so close. You can trim some off. You can also say, oh, I want to actually extend my little tail here. You can add some more. So you can edit this. You can go back in and clean this up. You might be looking at this and being like, why is there no hole in that T? So if I wanted to add a hole right here, I'd have to make it a really big one because this ultimately these like walls are so gonna be so thin. So I'll address some of the like design tolerance concerns in Shapeways. But yeah, so this is a way that you can edit this. And now I say, all right, I'm happy, done. And now everything has updated. My little tail right here is shorter, my tail is longer, and I'm happy. If you are like, I hate the fact that I had to use my own handwriting, my handwriting sucks, I have a cheat for you. If you go over to the basic shape menu, there is this text. So just select it, drop it down here, and now you can choose between a whopping 4 fonts, 2 of which are like nearly identical. So it's not great, but it's better if you're like, oh, I hate it. I hate my handwriting. Fine. Don't use your handwriting. And then now you can change the text. Ooh, what's going on? And I might, for my case, make it a little tighter. So play around with these little, these little features. Now, if you do text like this, now I have 5 objects that are not attached: the E, the X, the I, the dot, and the T. I'm going to have to do these like little connection points like this one to connect these. Otherwise, only the E and the T are going to be attached to the ring, and these are all going to be floating. So just keep that in mind. Shapeways will tell you if it's not printable, but you can resize this. You can do all the same things to this. So if you're just like, yeah, I hate my handwriting, there's your option. Okay, so go ahead and spend as much time as you want on that. I will stay on this for a little bit in case you guys have any questions, or you want like, you want me to show you something or say, how would I do this? Just go ahead and drop it in the comments. I'll just hang out for another like 1 or 2 minutes just to see if anyone has any questions or comments. And then the last thing is to export your item. You're like, I'm good to go. I want to make this, I want to wear this. I love it. You can go up to the upper right hand corner and click export. And you have options. I didn't select anything, so I'm saying everything that's in my design right now, everything on the work plane is good. So go ahead and export everything in the design, or if you've selected only a couple objects, you have to select things to be able to click this. So you can export in OBJ or STL. Either of those are files that can be 3D printed, that can be uploaded to Shapeways, or if you have a 3D printer and you want to prototype this in plastic first, either of those are fine. So STL is my go-to. And then you can see down here, oh, the only thing I forgot to tell you is how to rename your file. Just make sure that you go up here in the upper left-hand corner at some point and rename. So mine is going to be exit ring size 6. This is just how I like to name things for Shapeways. My Shapeways account, as you imagine, is full of files, so it helps me know what I'm looking at and what size it is. And so in my case, I'm actually going to export it again, STL, and you'll see it export following the naming convention that you just did. Okay. So thank you all. That was my modeling a script ring.